As Republicans doing this, it's on the committee released a Labor, Health, and Human Services and bill last week, including a $183 million cut to Social Security. According to the SSA's data, the union warned that Social Security, already underfunded agency, could see standing issues, like long wait times for accessing benefits and longer lines at offices, only worsen. As of June, the average wait time for callers to Social Security's customer service was a little over 43 minutes, and for some, the wait for benefits is more costly. A 2023 report, which looked at fiscal years 2014 and 2018, found that 48,000 Americans had to file for bankruptcy as they waited a final decision on their disability appeals. Meanwhile, 110,000 Americans during the same time period died during that time. Experts say that more cuts to SSA will result in a rapid increase of wait times and force SSA to make some difficult changes that people don't want to see happen. But now, aside from Social Security lawmakers, could be facing a budget shutdown this fall over a number of issues. For example, Republicans in the House Appropriations Committee are proposing a cut to fund Social Security, federal student aid, office at a time when student loan payments are resuming over a 3-year pause. Some Democratic lawmakers have already called on top appropriation lawmakers to consider increasing funding for the agency, and some Democrats also think that Social Security should see a similar influx in spending. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, for instance, have repeatedly introduced a bill that will bolster Social Security checks by $2,400, which would be subsidized by upping taxes on the wealthy. Senator Sanders said in a statement, "Our job is to expand Social Security so that every senior in America can retire with dignity that they deserve, and every person with a disability can live with the security they need." Republican presidential candidates are also announcing support for changes to Social Security for the millennials and the younger generations. But now, AARP predicted that if the trust fund is depleted, the program would only be able to pay about 70%, 80% of the benefits so far. This is not good, everybody. And what do you think Joe Biden will do for the people of America? Is he going to send out the stimulus checks in 2023? Can he get the job done? Tell me what you think in the comments down below. We got 10 minutes with the fourth stimulus check, everybody. Social Security benefits, SSI and SSDI. Continue to watch this video because you don't want to miss out on this. As inflation continues to go forward, well, shoppers are finally getting some relief at the grocery store. Rising food prices have been the biggest drivers of inflation since 2020, with a combination of labor shortages and supply chains setting grocery bills to spike like crazy. A big part of the grocery price jump came from eggs, which were in short supply for much of the year. And the sharp rise in grocery prices over the last few years has sometimes challenged the conventional wisdom that it's cheaper to eat meals at home rather than out at restaurants. And while the prices that consumers actually pay depend on where they choose to shop and dine out, new data actually shows prices for food at the home rose faster than food away from home for most of the year. And the figure matched pace with the consumer inflation in June from the prior month. And as the planet nearly broke the record for the hottest day known in history, Tampa Bay dealt with consecutive days of heat advisories. Now, what's going to happen is now about 20.5 million American households, or 1 out of 6 families, were behind on their electricity bills as of January. Even Duke Energy residential customers with past due bills, unpaid use services, are actually qualifying for the company's Share the Light Fund. The Share the Light Fund provides one-time financial assistance to help customers and people pay their energy bills, deposits, and utility connections or reconnection charges.
And it was a heavy lift. I could tell them you have a lot of workers because there's no jobs, you have a lot of people to choose from, but people had given up hope. They really stopped believing. But in all my efforts to recruit businesses and retrain those that had stayed, I have never seen a company with such a strong personal commitment to their future home that I've seen with Micron. It is extraordinary. It is nation leading, and not just investing in the people who'll come work there, that's a nice touch, but investing in the entire community. Not everybody's going to benefit from the programs that this Y are going to necessarily be Micron employees. They may be, but they also may not be. So for a community to care enough about the broader community really sets the bar high and allows me to go forth and say, well, Micron's doing it, can't you as well? I think this is how we lift up the entire state. It changes the conversation that we have.
On the corner, watching everybody go by to go onto the event. And Harry Truman was a speaker at the Truman dinner that year. And the sort of the David Broder of the Scranton Times was a guy named Tommy Phillips, who was elderly man, younger than me, but elderly man, who was the chief political reporter. And they got a picture, and I hadn't thought about it in a long time, but I'll send it over to
The program sets restrictions on both net and gross monthly income broken down to household size. But the barrier to acquiring food aid in Michigan has been lowered. It is a Governor Whitcomb-Wimmer, signed a bipartisan bill removing the asset test as a requirement to receive SNAP benefits. And according to the Michigan Executive Office of the Governor, the move will offer greater financial security to those who need it the most and ease the burden of receiving aid. Michigan is now one of the 37 states with similar laws, and the governor says people who had more than $15,000 worth of assets, including vehicles and savings, were disqualified for food assistance. Officials say that 500,000 children in Michigan will benefit from the eliminated asset, and now in Maine, all recipients of the SNAP program will have their monthly benefits delivered to them by today. SNAP benefits are distributed to eligible residents.
And while this violence, of course, impacts all communities, we also know it does not do so equally when Latino Americans are twice as likely to be victims of gun homicides. But again, instead of passing reasonable gun safety laws, these extremists suggest teachers should just strap on a gun in their classroom. This on top of an agenda to
Big news has been announced, and there are new proposals currently on the table. It would make a dramatic positive impact for the Social Security people. Joe Biden is making a big decision on this in order to try to avoid Social Security cuts for all recipients. Top senators for both parties are working to save Social Security benefits. Everyone in D.C. knows that Social Security is in trouble. They only have to listen to the federal government and the program's trustees. In the latest report, the trustees predicted that Social Security's combined trust funds is already running out of money, and by 2034, the program's done. But some in Washington are working on solutions to prevent the program from becoming insolvent. One of them, Senate Republican Bill Cassidy, recently revealed what he called a big idea in a webcast hosted by the Bipartisan Policy Center. It could roughly save 70% of the program's projected shortfall. The proposal is to create an investment fund that's completely separate from Social Security's current trust funds. This new investment fund would invest money in the stock market, where Social Security trust funds currently put money in treasury bills or cash. Now, what I mean is that he called Social Security's current approach the Silicon Valley Bank of pension funds, a reference to the failed bank that was acquired by the First Citizens Bank. He argued that this federal program is the worst investment strategy you can have right now. The separate fund isn't really a new idea, though, because he pointed to other funds, including the Canada Plan and Ontario Pensions Plan for teachers, that were in bad shape financially but became solvent by using a market-based strategy. There are some details remaining to be worked out. For instance, some people think the proposed plan will be a gap stop to guarantee that if they won't lose money if the stock market underperforms. Cassidy said the participation is now needed from both Democratic